All right. If I ever figure this out, if this ever takes off, maybe I'll end up with some intro music. But for now, my name is Dan. And again, if this takes off, I'll go ahead and give you my last name. But for right now, we'll leave it at Dan. You know me as Blue Skies Jacket Dan, Warhammer aficionado, college football fan, Yellow Jacket graduate, an occasional movie fan. So I thought it would be fun to run with this premise that I've had for a while now, which is the idea of looking back at movies that we loved when we were younger. Sometimes that younger was when you were a little kid. Sometimes when it was kind of just in that classic kid mode, let's call it preteen, 10 to 12, 13 area, those movies we loved when we were teens, even those movies we loved when we were in college. Hell, maybe some movies we loved as young adults. And the idea here will be, how did we grow? How do we change? And does it hold up when we watch it under the lens of being adults? And it's going to really be about, does it hold up as an entertaining film? And sometimes it's going to not hold up culturally, and we might talk about that. Sometimes it's going to not hold up as a film. And we're going to actually get into a little bit of that tonight, not so much in the filmmaking technique, but in, a film that was a beginning point for a certain type of genre for an American movie audience. And then look at how, at least via YouTube clips and direct-to-video anymore, the genre has evolved. So there's a lot of different ways that we'll think about, did it hold up? And someday maybe I'll have some guests on this. And someday maybe the episode will be longer than like this little 10 or 15 minute highlights and thoughts. This is mostly just a test to see how this works. I'm not the type of guy who's going to talk extemporaneously about a movie for half an hour. But I think it could be fun. I think it's going to be an outlet. And I hope it'll be entertaining. So the movie I actually decided to start this whole thing off with and revisit is 1988's Bloodsport. I think everybody knows this movie. I think we all know what the rating is going to be. We all know it was the start of really setting off a run for a little while for Jean-Claude Van Damme. But part of the structure of the show, if I stick with this, is going to be, when did I watch it? Why did it matter to me? If I can have a guest, we'll ask them the same type of questions and see what they think. But let's talk about Bloodsport. Came out in 1988. I was 10 years old. I had just moved to Columbus, Georgia. That had not gone great for me. Would actually get a little bit worse from there, but this is not a podcast about that. But we moved to Columbus. I am 10, and Bloodsport comes out that summer of 88 on HBO. And it's one of the, HBO is going to run this every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And I can't remember if it's the very first movie I did this for, but it's one of the first. And it was a movie where I didn't even want to wait for it to be on HBO. I actually figured out how to set up the VCR, press record, and the copy of Bloodsport that I had the opening HBO title card, if people remember it, where it's like light flying in from the side, home box office entertainment comes up, and then it goes into Bloodsport. I had the whole movie. I was obsessed with Bloodsport. So much so that I showed it to the few friends I started to develop when I first moved to Columbus. And funny enough, when I went to my 20th high school reunion, now almost 10 years ago, one of those same guys was bringing his wife through Columbus, showing off his hometown, went by my first house when I was a kid there, and his memory was saying, that was the house I saw Bloodsport for the first time. So it was a movie. It was a cultural touch point. It launched a career. But I want to talk about, as part of this first episode, is actually spend some time talking about how did Bloodsport work in terms of launching a genre in America. And it launched the fight film genre broadly, and it launched the kind of master trains a guy goes and fights for the master genre in America. And I'm not a film historian, so there may be other films with this. I mean, we had Chuck Norris before this, so that was kind of your first. Lone Wolf McQuade might be a fun movie to do for this with David Carradine. But I don't know, Chuck Norris never quite took off. We had Bruce Lee in the 60s and early 70s. There was a martial arts pop. Bruce Lee dies. The genre just doesn't last. Yes, Chuck Norris tries to make it go. And then there's Bloodsport. And maybe someday in the future, I'll do follow-up episodes. I'll jump in, I'll look at history and try to see if there was a cultural zeitgeist going on where it fit. But for whatever reason, maybe it was the combination of home box office. It was just the fact that it's a really, really fun movie. Bloodsport captured people my age, a little bit younger, and became one of those movies that took off. And you can see why, right? Jean-Claude Van Damme really looks the part. He's got that superhero look early. It's kind of funny if you compare it to now. He is still very, very cut. He's big, but he's not Marvel superhero big. He's not modern movie big, but he's big. Everybody looks in shape. People look the part. The fight choreography is pretty good. The story is interesting and relatively tight. Acting is not bad, considering the type of movie that it is. So it just hit at the right time. Predator had come out a similar period of time, right? We've got this run of action movies going. We're starting to see all of these films kind of take off. We're back into an action movie mindset. But what Jean-Claude Van Damme did with Bloodsport, in my opinion, is relaunch martial arts movies, especially the concept of kind of mixed martial arts before we even had a name for it. At that point in time, just hits. Fantastic movie. So let's get into a little bit of what the premise of the show is going to be. Does it hold up? I actually just rewatched this movie. I sat down, I watched the high points. I have seen it so many times. So it's not... There's going to be other times. There's some movies I've talked about doing where I'm going to come in. I maybe haven't watched that movie literally since I was a kid, right? And I'm in my mid to late 40s. So some of these I might not have seen in 30-something years. I remember them fondly. I'll go back and rewatch them. Bloodsport's a movie I watched all through childhood. I watched several times in college. I've watched as an adult. I about have it memorized, but I sat and rewatched it tonight. Haven't watched it again in a while, so I thought I'd sit here, rewatch it tonight. Does it hold up? In a lot of ways, yes. But I will say there's some things that are interesting that you see with that, because people may not realize this, and I'm not one watching them actively, but YouTube clips have changed a lot of ways that we absorb things like film, especially action movies. You can sit down and type in something like best fight sequences on YouTube. You'll get 50 minutes of just the fight sequences. So one thing I will say, it's a fun movie. It holds up. But the fight sequences don't hold up great. As somebody who's an aficionado who really likes like wuxia films, like, The Five Deadly Venoms, from that era, like Shaw Brothers type movies, who likes Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, who, it was for a while a fight fan in reality, so liked MMA, but then watches kind of more modern things like, movies with like Michael J. White in them, or Scott Adkins, or people like that. Look them up on YouTube if you don't know who those people are. There's an interesting kind of spot where the fight choreography lives in Bloodsport that just jumped out to me, which was it's good. It's good for the era. And obviously these are real martial artists, but there's also there's a sloppiness to it where you can tell they were probably on a tight budget. You're still shooting this movie on film. So obviously that's going to make it pretty expensive. But Frank Dukes himself was the fight choreographer, so maybe that actually right there explains a lot of things as well, now that I think about it. But we could talk about that in a minute here, too. But it is funny because the fight choreography, there's just some times, right? There's just stuff that doesn't make sense. There's some laziness to it that, like, a Jackie Chan movie wouldn't let you get away with. Punches that clearly weren't going to land. Guys who are supposed to be world-class martial artists throwing just the worst wild, wide crap you would see. Frank Dukes kicking a guy twice his fucking size in the shoulders for some reason before he gets made to do another split. Like, those types of things, like, you get tighter in modern martial arts movies. Or you do something like, say, the MMA revival, when you get some movies like Never Back Down and stuff like that, where they got messier, right? You move into, without going into full shaky cam bullshit, you actually get into messier films, a little bit messier fight choreography. So, funny enough, sitting through it, story's fun, it's a tight movie, it's great, but as somebody who also likes fight movies, when you look back on it, when you sit down, you put a little bit of a critical eye on it, it's like, the fight choreography doesn't hold up great. And then obviously, just to jump in and spend the last couple of minutes on this, just as a little test episode for this format, obviously, when I was 10, I believed everything that popped up at the end of the movie about how Frank Dukes set all of these records and how this was a true story and, how he was a spy that they made a movie about. And obviously, he's a bullshit artist and a fraud. He got exposed. If he'd ever actually fought Jean-Claude Van Damme or some of the other people in the movie, they would have beat the shit out of him. But it's funny. It's people love to kind of build up the legends around people who were like him. And so it made for a really funny thing to become an adult. And it doesn't ruin the movie because the movie's so fantastical and silly anyway. But it is entertaining to think about that aspect of it. It really makes for a just interesting juxtaposition about thinking about some of the aspects of the movie and how much this person who's supposed to be real is completely full of shit. In a way, it makes it more entertaining. It actually makes it funnier. And then just a few other things just to talk about, some other just small things. I thought it was really interesting if you watch this again, the amount of ADR that's in the movie, right? Like re-recording voiceover work. And not just for people who are clearly not native English speakers, right? Like Bolo Young, you obviously, right? Chinese citizen. Actually, his English got a lot better if you watch some of the other, like, those mid-90s kind of post-boom. People are still doing direct-to-video movies. He's in, like, a bunch of movies like Cynthia Rothrock and stuff like that. And his English actually was pretty good with an accent, right up there with somebody like Jackie Chan. But no, like, there's the guy who's supposed to play, I don't know if he's the colonel. I think he was the colonel in the military base. Watch that scene again. They ADR the hell out of him. I have no idea why. Maybe they couldn't afford boom mics. So you have stuff like that. It's just all over the place. I always thought that was really funny. Rewatching it now with just noticing that. Some of the performances are really interesting in the movie too. Like, I always thought it was interesting. The guy who plays Tanaka gives one of the very best performances in the movie. Definitely better than Jean-Claude Van Damme. Obviously, Donald Gibbs, one of the only other real actors in it. The guy everybody knows is Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, who plays Jackson, the no fighting style, I'm just big guy, which would be silly, except there's a guy that Dukes has to fight that has exactly that same style. So, as filmmaking goes, obviously it's not great, right? This was, God, I should have put a note on it, but whoever that production company was, Gobulin Globus, something like that. Terrible, right? They're not big budget. I think they made $1 bajillion off of this. It probably funded a bunch of other movies, but it is funny to watch it, see some decent, some decent things. The fight cinematography is good. You can actually tell what's going on. That was a lost art for a while and bigger budget action films than this. But obviously the editing's interesting in some spots. Banger of a soundtrack. You get Fight to Survive by the guy who did The Touch for the Transformers movie, a film I will absolutely hopefully talk about on this potential podcast. So, not to keep running, it's just me going by myself, but I wanted to use this as a little bit of a sound check to see if I could sit here and talk about a movie for a period of time, and then to maybe put this out and get people's opinions and see what they think. So, gonna put this online, see what people think, looking for you guys to give me some feedback on the structure. I got a ton of ideas for some other movies I want to do in here. I've talked about maybe doing The Secret of Nim. If anybody remembers that terrifying film, I might do Kroll. I'm going to probably do The Goonies because I'm very, very curious to be super critical about that movie when people tell me they don't think it holds up outside of having seen it as a kid. I'm not sure I actually believe that about The Goonies. I actually think that was a really good movie. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this. Hopefully I can make something out of this. I'm very terrible at sticking with things that is not painting Warhammer miniatures, it seems to be. But I hope I can maybe do something here where it's like one episode a week. I use this as an excuse to watch a movie. We talk about it. Maybe it'll be quick. If we can get some guests, it'll be longer because I'm hoping to goof off and do stuff like that. But yeah, I'm excited about the possibility here. I think this is going to be fun. And I love talking about movies with people, believe it or not. So yeah, I hope you guys are interested in this. Looking forward to your feedback. And tell me what you think when I share this with everyone on Blue Sky. And with that, we'll call that the first episode of Does It Hold Up? Thanks for listening. Looking forward to doing this some more.